Hi everyone, welcome back. Myself Mansoor VM. I'm an ACC member as you discussed in the last session. Welcome to the day 2 of Audit and Assurance Crash series over here. So just to recap what we have done in day 1. So the day 1 live is available in SOE YouTube channel. So you can go and refer relating to that. We discussed about the audit risk. We discussed about the how to frame the answer for the audit risk, where people will be losing marks, where people will be making small mistake, where will cost you half mark over there. So we have completed that audit risk part. We have taken a particular question, we have worked out that particular question here. So today's agenda will be basically to the day 2, we'll be looking at internal controls. So before we go into that internal controls, this is considered to be a kind of major core area as we discussed in the last session as well. So core area of minimum of, I would say, a 20 mark, including section A and section B. We can accept this thing over there. So there are ways in which the questions will be covering that. Okay, how the questions will be coming, how we'll be tackling with that particular questions, what are the exam technique to look into that particular thing as well. Okay, so today we'll be focusing practical concept of how to frame the question relating to internal controls. So those who are online now, those who are live on now, okay, you can use a chat box for putting in what are your major problem areas or what are the difficulties you will be facing relating to this internal controls over here. Okay, chat box is open for you. Deepak, good evening. Okay, right, so now you can post whatever doubts you have relating to internal controls on the chat box. We will be touching that particular concepts again so that you are clear about the particular concepts. Yes guys, waiting for any queries if you have, or else we will directly go into discussing this particular concept. I am sure that you will be having little difficulty sometimes framing the question, especially I've had with the SOE global students. Sometimes they will be having a problem in framing the questions for audit risk question and internal control questions, and it's a general thing only. Like most of the ACCA students will be attending AA, they'll be doing what, they will be kind of making a mistake of whatever the audit response, they will be putting in here internal control recommendation or vice versa. So there they'll be losing marks. Yes, Arif will be just looking into the test of controls, what are test of controls and what is the difference between a test of control and a substantive procedure also. We will go through that. Okay, right. Okay, anyone else is having any doubts relating to any of the areas, the difficulties? I'm asking about the difficulties that you guys faced while framing the answer. Okay, or difficulties you are having relating to the concept itself. To summarize this particular thing, in a particular company, whenever you are getting a question from AA or maybe in general also, we have 6 control systems in general. So anyone can tell me what all those 6 control systems will be having? So we'll start with that particular aspect and we will go ahead with that particular thing, right? Yes, anyone can help me out with this? What are the 6 internal control systems that a company may have? Yes, one you already know, most probably, sales system. We'll be having a purchase system. We can have a payroll system. We can have a non-current asset system. We can have a cash and bank system. So I have already listed out you 5. Sales, sales, purchase. So people are coming like sales, purchase, payroll, inventory, non-current, bank and cash. Okay, so we'll be having this 6 system to the minimum, but it's not necessary that we'll be having all 6 systems together. But sometimes what happens, okay, the company might not have that much of non-current asset purchases. So in that particular case, we will not see a non-current asset. It's not a significant basic thing, significant, we'll call it as class of transaction or SCOT in EY terms. Okay, it is not a significant class of transaction. So each of the significant class of transactions will be considered as a system over there. Now it is necessary for the auditor to understand why or what are these particular systems, how they are being processed into the particular company, which will be little bit different relating to the company's nature, so that they will plan their audit procedures so that they can carry out their audit effective basis over there. So the question we'll be having today is touching on this SBK part also. Why do we need a better understanding of internal controls in a particular company? So if anyone can put in over here. By the way, thanks Arif and Benita and Deepak to finding out or putting in that 6 systems of internal controls over here, right? So can you guys give me any kind of aspect over here, any problems you faced? That also we'll be discussing in here. Yes. So we are into day 2, where we'll be discussing about internal controls in total, the concepts relating to that, and we will practice a question where we'll discuss more about the exam techniques as well. So before we dig in, again, chat box, people in, can we have a discussion relating to the difficulties you have faced? If you can debug any difficulty you have faced relating to these kind of questions. Yes. Okay, how to explain why it is a control deficiency? Yes, that is a problem sometimes student will be facing, like how to explain why it is a control deficiency. You will be able to identify that as a control deficiency, but the marks is again over here is an exam technique marks will be available for explaining why it is a control deficiency. So we'll be going through that as well. Okay, so without any further delay, let's touch on the basic concepts and quickly move on to the question practice relating to this particular area. So internal control system, we'll be starting with basically the components of internal control system. So what are crime? Okay, we'll have that crime relevant over here. So what are crime over here? Yes, crime relates to okay, the internal control environment, which is again could come for a 4-marker to 5-marker in a straightforward bookish knowledge question, where you might need to explain what is each component of this crime. So C stands for control activities, as you can see over here. R stands for risk assessment procedures. I stands for information and communication systems. M stands for monitoring of controls, and E stands for the control environment. So it's a acronym or the short form we'll be using to identify these particular things relating to this control activities. So again, highlighting you guys, although this is a small area, although this is which would have been learned in other subjects as well, this particular thing is very important, because this could come as a straightforward bookish knowledge question in your section B, which might get you or which might give you around 4 to 5 marker. It could come. I'm not saying it will come for you for sure, but there is always an 80% chance that this would come as a straightforward bookish knowledge question. So you guys can go through this particular, what is control activity, okay, what is risk assessment processes, what is information system and communication related thing, what is the monitoring of control, what is the control environment. So this will be there in this file, and I'll be sharing at the end of this particular session with you. And there is also the difficulties that would be faced by a smaller entity, especially the 2 things that will be looking over here. In a smaller entity, complex entities or bigger entities, it's not a problem, but the lack of segregation of duties, we will not be having that much people who will be working. So giving the segregation of duty concept, it will be little difficult over there. And since most of these small entities are owner managed, there is always a likelihood of management override of controls. So meaning, even if the controls are effective also, the management might override. So in effect, it will become ineffective in that. And the cost versus benefit will bar someone, or cost versus benefit will deter someone to apply this particular internal controls lively on the small entities as well. That could be the particular problem. And again, for a small and medium sized entity, if it is given in an exam question also, in reality also, auditors will be preferring to go with substantive based approach. Now, touching on that particular concept, an audit can be done based on a control reliance strategy. An audit can be done on a fully substantive basis also. So if you believe during the planning stage, when you're making the documentations of this particular controls, if you rely the operating effectiveness, not the operating effectiveness, there are two kinds of effectiveness over there relating to a control: design effectiveness and operating effectiveness. Design effectiveness is like, no, you intended this particular thing to be solving some particular problem. For example, there is a room. For that particular room, I need to prevent unauthorized access, so I designed a particular door over there. So that door is designed for that particular thing with a particular lock on it. So that is, the design is perfect, but it does not necessarily mean that it is operating effectively. For example, if you keep the key behind that or below that particular, like, no, a particular plan box or something we usually do in our homes when we have only one key, and someone else from outside knows that, okay, you are keeping the key over here, although the control is designed effectively, it might not operate effectively. So this particular thing has to be considered. So if you are not relying on controls, okay, normally in small and medium sized entities, the companies or the auditors will be following up a substantive approach. I myself had some experience around, like, no, this auditing experience over that, like, no, it is very, very rare that we have dealt with, like, no, control testing. Control testing only happens with very complex entities over here. Okay, so that is the thing we'll be looking into over here. Right now, anything else we'll be having? Again, a straightforward bookish knowledge questions we can have over here. What are the limitations of an internal control system? Limitations of internal control system will be again come for 4 to 5 marker, or it could be an MCQ questions you could see in section A as well. So limitations of internal control system, it could be human error, it could be cost versus benefit. Human error meaning how perfect your internal control systems are. However maybe perfect your internal control systems are, we'll be looking into this particular human error. We'll be looking into, like, no, cost versus benefit analysis, meaning as we discussed for the small entities over there, we'll be looking into that cost benefit aspect. Then management override of controls, as we discussed for the small entities over there, management can override controls for bigger entities also. So that could become, the controls will become ineffective over that as well. Then we will have deliberate violation of controls. Meaning, like, no, employees, okay, we had put in that concept called segregation of duties. One task will be done by one, another task will be done by the other person, but if they collude together, they can deliberately violate, like, no, rebel mode, that is being kicking in relating to this thing. That will also come in relating to this particular areas, right? Yes. Now, relating to the other aspect, the fifth one, controls can be placed only for those items you can predict. Okay, there is going to be a particular trouble. Okay, we are saying, okay, some wrong things can happen, or the term we might use as auditors is what can go wrong in a particular situations. So what can go wrong in a particular situation? If you know, okay, this might go wrong. If you know that this might go wrong, I can create a control to prevent, or even, like, no, detect if it is coming over there. So if you are not sure about what is going to come, like a one-off event, some unplanned events, so existing controls will not be enough to prevent that, enough to detect that particular things. So these are the 5 limitations of internal control systems, which can be again considered as a limitations, straightforward bookish knowledge question in this particular area. So without any further delay, okay, let's go in relating to another further SBK question you will be having, which will be, like, no, if I go towards below, like, no, another question you will be having us, what are the, like, no, why do we need to consider documenting? What are the need for documenting internal control system? Plus, what are the methods of documenting internal control systems? We have 4 methods. One is a narrative note. We have a flowchart method. We have an internal control questionnaire method over here. we have internal control evaluation questionnaires also, and each one, so the question will be straightforward, very straightforward. Basically they could ask you like, no, what are the methods, name two methods, or describe two methods, or describe three methods where which the auditors can document internal controls, and either they could ask for advantages or they could ask for the disadvantages also. So this particular thing is again available in this document that I am going to share with you. I'm not reading through this particular thing, it's straightforward understandable thing, so you guys can read through this, and if you have any doubts you can always get back to me over here itself. Okay, right? So now let's talk about the exam questions, how it will come. Okay, these are to be noted, very important. Focus over here guys, focus over here, clearly over here. You will have an exam technique. Okay, there are three ways the questions will come to you. First way to come is like, no, they could ask you a control deficiency and recommendation related question. They could give you a control deficiency and recommendation question over here. Okay, and they could go for a direct control and test of controls also. Next thing, so one way to ask a question would be here is, from a given scenario you need to identify what are the control deficiencies, explain why that is a control deficiency, and state what is the negative impact you will be having relating to this particular thing. I'll repeat once more. The way in which you will be receiving one question would be, the examiner might ask you, they will give a particular scenario with a question, scenario with the company, and it would be either on a single internal control system, or it could be based on a multiple internal control systems as well. So in a question you could have a sales system only, or in a question you could have a sales system, payroll system, or maybe non-current system as well. So based on this particular thing, they will ask you either we'll be having this particular thing like, no, we'll be having the deficiencies, we'll be having why that is a deficiency, we'll need to give the negative impact over there. Question from Akshay here, which two systems are being computerized? Normally we can assume that sales and purchases systems are integrated. The term is integrated, so that is being like, no, computerized over there. Okay, we'll have that computerized systems over there, will be integrated that particular thing over there, so you can assume that it would be integrated. So we can expect some controls based on internal or computerized controls also, you would be expecting that. Sales and purchases always. Okay, now the other aspect that you can look in over here, your inventory systems can be integrated, can be computerized, can be integrated with all of that ERP systems over there, or it may not be integrated. So at AA level, it is safe to assume that unless stated otherwise, okay, sales and purchases will be an integrated system. Going forward with, like, you know, for the last 1 year we have been following this particular assumption again. So we'll have like, no, computerized system for sales and purchases. If they mention inventory is integrated, it will be integrated, or else it will not be integrated. That is the case over here, right? Yes. So that's the thing. So let's get back to the first things over here. If you have given a particular question where you have to identify the control deficiency and you need to give a control recommendation over here, I would believe this is the easiest question you could have got in an internal control scenario, because you can see there are some deficiencies, there are some problems while we read through that particular scenario. That would be a control deficiency. So identifying, as Deepak mentioned, like, no, he knows how to identify control deficiencies, but it's little bit difficult why that is a particular deficiency. I'll take you through that once we explain this particular thing. I'll take you through that, like, no, why it is a deficiency. Because it could be causing some controls not to operate properly. So how do we identify there is a deficiency? We have a trick up hand. We'll have it a trick over here. You can use that particular trick and we can consider using that to solve that particular thing. And again, you will be losing marks if you are not mentioning what would be the negative impact you will be having on the business over here also. Okay, so what we need to do, we'll go back This is also mentioned. I am giving you this particular thing again. What are the general 8 examples of a control deficiency? This is not a complete list. There can be other thing, but majority of the things you would be seeing, the majority of the deficiencies you will be seeing will be falling into these kind of categories over here. So first one on the left side on the B column, you can see that weaker or no segregation of duties. Wherever we see this particular thing, okay, there is something relating to a payroll, and payroll has been like no adding employees, then deciding their salary and paying their salary is done by one person. We don't have a segregation of duties. So if we don't have a segregation of duties, or if we don't see the weaker, if you are seeing a weaker segregation of duty, it is an indication that yes, there is a control deficiency. Second thing, seniority of the staff. There will be some task that needs to be performed by experienced person who is senior in nature. For example, review of something needs to be done by a senior, which is being done by a junior, meaning that junior doing the role of a senior, it again comes for a control deficiency. Third one, anyone doing any transactions without receiving authorization from a senior level is again a consideration of a control deficiency. Example, like no someone making a payment to a supplier without getting approval from the finance director. So without getting go, let's make a payment, that approval is not given, but since like no it is not received, but again like no payroll person, or let's say a payable ledger clerk is paying the payment, making the payment through the bank account without getting an approval from the finance director is a form of internal control deficiency again. Okay, now coming to like no the fourth one, if they have mentioned in the question, okay, no review has been done, okay, or no proper review has been done. There are two things over here. What is no review? They have not done this particular thing. Second thing is like why this particular thing is like no proper review, meaning you should have been reviewed on a daily basis, but instead that particular person is doing on a monthly basis, which is taking you through the 8 point improper frequency of control. You are doing it improper frequency. That is another thing. Coming on the fifth point, manual versus automated thing. Wherever we can automate, automation will reduce the risk, reduce the errors. That is the concept over there. Wherever it could have been automated, you're doing manually, meaning that it would increase the control deficiency. It's increase the risk of misstatement. So it's again a control deficiency we'll be looking into. Okay. Now again, the sixth one. Anywhere in the question they have said they have not done. They have not done. Okay. No kind of no or not. These two terms, if you see anywhere, either directly or indirectly, you see the meaning as okay, they have not done it. It is not present over there, meaning that it is again a control deficiency you will be looking into over here. And then we will have documentational issues. Enough copies is not being given to the different departments, or the document itself like no is having some errors. They are not having some documentation number, they are not following this kind of sequential numbering. All those particular things will be coming into play relating to an internal control deficiency over here. Okay, then the possible negative impact that you need to give. Yes guys, we need to give a possible negative impact over here. So what would be the negative impacts? This is again up for a half a mark. Majority times due to the control deficiency, the business will suffer. Again guys, it is not recommended to give a impact on the FS over here. Like if you mentioned that could result into an overstatement or understatement of this particular thing over here, that will lead you towards an audit response related question like that. So that's why we are deliberately avoiding that words of understatement and overstatement over here. We are considering what is going to be the possible negative impact a business could have on the business. What is the negative impact that will have on the business over here? So one, due to that deficiency, the business could have a loss of goodwill. In total, the company's goodwill would be affected. Second, the goodwill would be affected. The customer's goodwill will be affected. Third, the employee's goodwill will be affected. Fourth, the suppliers goodwill will be affected. So the good words or the good relationship might be affected between customers, employees and suppliers due to the deficiencies coming in payroll system, due to the deficiencies coming in sales system, due to the deficiencies coming in purchase system. Okay, coming second one, due to the goodwill, it could due to the loss of goodwill, customers, loss of goodwill from the customers will go away from you, resulting in loss of future sales for you, or we'll be having like no cash flow problems over here. So we will have a cash flow problems, like no, the customers will not pay, like a receivable you are not following up, so they might not pay, resulting in bad debts, will be resulting in cash flow problems for the company in the future. And sometimes you are not accounting properly, or sometimes you are not reviewing properly the payroll ledger, could be resulting in like no an increased cost for the company as well. So always the possible negative impacts you need to give it on the business over here, which you might not find in any of the revision kits you will be having over here. Okay, so the revision kit answers ideally will be focusing on the identification and saying like no why that particular thing, but in order to have it properly understandable over here, what would be the impact, or if it is a deficiency, what would be the negative impact that will be having on the company would need to be looked into here. So that is the concept that we need to look into. Okay, so this is the first type of question, and the first type of question is on control deficiency and your control recommendation. So you will identify again to gain the marks, as we can see over the screen over here. You need to come up with what? You need to come up with first point. Half a mark is for identifying the deficiency. You can copy paste from the question again. You need to explain why that is a deficiency. You can refer the 8 points above, which is over there, which is missing over there, which is being shown over there. You can consider that why that is a deficiency. And third one, negative impact on the business, as we have a loss of goodwill, maybe future cost or loss of future sales, like that. You could have that particular thing coming up over here. Now coming to the right side question for the control recommendation. Control recommendation, you would recommend a good control to cover the deficiency. So whatever deficiency you have identified, to cover that particular deficiency, you need to recommend a good control over here. Okay, so meaning if you are saying okay, this thing is not being reviewed, you would suggest okay, that item needs to be reviewed by a senior official, and like you will add value to that, who, when, and the frequency when they will be doing, who will be doing it, when they will doing on an annual basis, or like not on a cycle basis, and the frequency, like how many times we need to consider. These things needs to be considered over here, and there will be getting that marks. And again, in the particular case, if you have written identification, you will get that easy 0.5 marks. Okay, but again, why is the deficiency and negative impact together only will get that 0.5 marks over here. So be careful not to lose that particular marks. This is the first exam technique we'll be looking into, right? Yes. So any questions relating to this particular part? Deepak, you are clarified about this particular thing? Yes. So Deepak is mentioning in the chat as, sir, can I start writing like this? There is a lack of segregation of work on X area. It is a risk due to deficiency matter. Yeah, you can start with that, like Deepak. Let me frame the question. We have a question to do. Let me frame that particular question also. We will consider that as well. Okay. Now, second thing. Okay, guys, any of your friends are yet to join the live, you can ask them to join the live. Okay, we are going into the practice of the questions once we touch on the exam techniques. Okay, right. Yes, now going into direct controls and test of control. The second way to do the second question the examiner could ask you over here is, the second question that could be asked by the particular people over here is, what would be the case over here? Okay, what would be the case over here? Yes. Is the screen visible to you? I believe there was a glitch in between. Right. Yes. So we will be considering direct controls and test of control. Another question the examiner will put you to test this particular thing would be to identify what are the direct controls. What is this meant by the direct controls? It is known as good controls. What are the good controls we'll be considering over here? So we have good controls. Based on that particular good controls, you will be considering like same method you will be considering. Initially you identified what? You identified a deficiency. Now you are going to identify, okay, there is a good control which is preventing something. So now why that is a good control? Again we will be going into that particular thing over here, if you go to that Excel, I have given you the opposite of this particular thing. Deficiency, general examples of good control also I have given in column D over here, which you can use to go through, which is the opposite. So I would normally say to our SOE Global students that we will be consider, okay, study only one, the examples of control deficiency. Opposite is your kind of good controls over there. Okay, so the impact also the same way around. So we can have that thing read through over here, right? Now the exam technique over here relating to direct controls will be having identifying and explain the direct controls. So we have a good control, we'll be getting 0.5 marks. Yes, copy paste again from the question, copy and paste into that. Now then we'll be explaining why that is a good control, plus what is the positive impact, like gaining customer goodwill, gaining the employee goodwill, savings in cost, gaining or ensuring that future sales has been received. There is not going to be any future cash flow problems. So along with that, 2 plus 3 will again give you 0.5 marks. Once you have this particular thing, someone mentioned in the chat that like, no, they have a problem with test of controls. So what is the test of control? That is now the question. Now you have a good control over here. Now Deepak is saying that, okay, I have a door which is having a lock. Assume that Deepak is saying that, okay, there is a door on the lock, door and lock is there, and I am having that particular thing. Now I need to check what is test of controls is. Test of controls checks your operational efficiency, whether your controls are operating effectively, whether your controls are operating effectively. That is the concept that you will be looking into relating to that, operating effectively. Now this operating effectively or tested for, I'll mention that tested for controls are actually operating effectively, and this test is done by whom? Test is done by auditor, not the management. This is the key. The people who will be losing marks in this particular area is, okay, the area how they will be losing marks over here, they will be losing marks relating to, they'll be losing marks relating to they are putting like no some recommendation. Again, recommendation will be putting on the top for the control recommendation, like management should have been reviewed like this particular thing, like that you can keep it over there. But for here, test of control recommendation or like no test of control is an action that is done by the auditor to check the operating effectiveness of that particular control. Okay, and again we are testing controls. Okay, so where we'll be losing marks over here? How will be losing marks over here? If you state, you will be losing marks, you lose marks for stating management actions, lose marks if you state management actions, or instead of the control testing, if you give substantive procedures, if you are giving substantive procedures, there also you will be losing marks over here. So this should not be done relating to recommendation of the test of control. This relates to this only. Okay, you will be losing marks in the test of control if you are giving a management action, if you are giving a substantive procedures over there. Clear for you guys? Clear for you guys? Right. Yes, Deepak, that is being done by auditor only. So auditor's action should be given in the test of controls. What auditors will be testing, that would be considered over there. That is the case. Yes. Yes. Right. Now, let's get into the third kind of questions which will have more marks, a minimum of 18 marks you can get from the next kind of question the examiner will be asking you. So for the first two scenarios, what you have seen over here, which is relating to like no control deficiency and recommendation and direct controls and test of controls, it would be limited to like no maybe identifying either 8 or 7 items, 8 or 7 item. If it is 8, it will come to like no 16 marks. It will be relating to 7, it would come to like no kind of will be having like no again for let's say 14 to 16 marks if it is asked separately under separate question. And there is also a possibility that you will be going for like no control deficiency and recommendation of control as a sub question, and again a separate question will come for identifying direct controls and test of controls. Both together will be again having 5 plus 3 or maybe like no 4 plus 4 kind of things. So it will be limited to again 16 marks over there. But in a particular scenario, if you have presented with this particular thing, the third kind of question they'll be asking control deficiency, identify control deficiency. They'll be asking the second thing, can make a control recommendation, and then we'll be asking the third things, for the control recommendations you have made, provide a test of control. So we have 1 mark here, 1 mark on the second part, and 1 mark on the third part. So we'll be having these particular things all together. As you can see, same thing only. You will identify the deficiency, why that is a deficiency, what is that negative impact, you will have 1 mark. Recommend a good control and add value to that particular statement. Adding value, either you mention who and when and frequency do, or the other way to do, mention a control. Other way to get is mention a control which will ensure, okay, the number one, the what is the recommendation you had over here is being done. So you are checking that particular thing is being done. For example, we could have recommended, okay, let's say bank reconciliation needs to be prepared by a particular person, and we can give a add value statement over there. Someone senior should review that bank reconciliation on a frequent basis. That could be adding value also. That way also we can get that additional mark, 1 mark over there. And again, in test of controls, whatever good control you have put in, you need to give a control over there, and whatever like additional thing you have mentioned, that also needs to be checked. Basically, like no, someone would be putting a signature, auditee will be inspecting that particular document to see that the signature has been put over there. So this could be like no, the kind of things we'll be doing over here. Okay, so we have discussed about the exam techniques. We have discussed about the possible questions that will be coming relating to internal control systems over here. It could be either control deficiency versus control recommendation. It could be either a direct control, and it could be related to what? It could be relating to, we'll be having a control, good control and test of control, and it could be coming together deficiency, recommendation and test of controls. And ideally these questions would be coming for either identify 5 deficiency and give a recommendation and give a test of control, or it would come for 6 also. If it comes for 6, we'll have 6 for the deficiencies, 6 for the control recommendation, and 6 for the test of controls. It could come for a total of 18 marks also, which we are going to see in our question that we are going to do today. So before we proceed into that particular question, is there any areas or is there any doubts you have relating to this particular exam techniques we are right now having? So Deepak mentioned he is having trouble with explanation. We will deal with that particular thing, and while you are explaining this thing, I'll take you through how to explain that particular thing over there. Right? Anything else? If you have anything to make up, okay? Right? So you guys are liking this particular thing, you are understanding this particular thing, you can give like no in the comments, you can mention, okay, right? So the exam techniques, if you have not understood, anyone not understood, you can also mention over here. I'll explain once more, right? So this exam technique we are now going to apply into the question over here. Okay, but before we go into the question, there is again, I am giving you a hint again for a kind of like no, we'll be having one more aspect, like no, we'll be having a control objectives. Okay, the C column you can see I have put in again this thing over here. Sales system, what could be the control objectives? Purchase system, we could have the control objectives. Payroll system, what could have been the control objectives? Inventory system, bank and cash and non-current systems. So these things can come for again, this control objectives relating to anything can come for again an SPK question. Again an SPK question. It could be asking what are the control objectives of the sales system. They could give you what are the control objectives of a purchase system. They can come. Okay. Yes, Deepak, the query or the comment made here is, I know this is direct control, but really I don't know how to explain. Yes, we will consider that, Deepak. Let's consider with the question over here. Right. Yes. Okay, so guys, we are now going into the second part of today's sessions where we'll be considering going through the question, identifying that particular thing, and going with how to structure that particular answer using the exam techniques we have mentioned over there. Okay, now Deepak mentioned one thing: a multi-par purchase order is then generated. Purchase manager authorizes all orders below 3,000, and the purchasing director authorizes orders of 3,000 and above. Okay, so this is a direct control, meaning since we are having two time or a junior level person or not junior level person, the purchase manager will be approving for 3,000 and anything above will be authorized by a purchase director, meaning there is a review or there is a particular authorization activity that is happening over there. Because of that, which will prevent if we are giving anything above 3,000 is also being authorized by purchase manager, there is always a chance that he could pause or he could purchase anything that is not for the business use. So by having a purchase director to look over that personal use kind of thing purchase can be avoided. Okay, due to that we'll be having savings in cost for the company and savings of future cash flows also. So that could be that explanation. I believe Deepak that has clarified you for that particular thing, right? So guys, let's get into the question. The second part, right? Yes. So the question we'll have over here is relating to, I believe the question is visible to you. Okay. And again, whenever we have this particular thing, we'll read through what are the requirements relating to this particular question. We'll start with the first thing, the requirement. Requirement A, which is worth 2 plus 1, 3 marks. Requirement A, which is worth 2 plus 1, 3 marks. Is it readable for you or should I zoom in a little bit, guys? I believe I need to zoom in a little bit. So let's zoom in a little bit. Okay. So yes. Okay. Now the questions will be a little bit more visible. Right. So now over here, question A is a sub question A rather than question A. Sub question A is a direct question. It's an SBK question where you can easily score marks over here. Okay. Explain why the auditor obtains an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit. Explain why the auditor obtains an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit. Okay. Now, can anyone give why they need to have an understanding of this particular thing? Why do we need to have? In order to plan their audit properly. So if they can get an understanding of internal controls and the internal controls are relevant, they can design their nature, timing and extent of procedures by looking at this particular thing, whether this is going to work properly, the controls are operating effectively or not operating effectively. If controls are not to be relied upon, they will be going for a full substantive procedure as we explained at the start of the class, or we'll be going for the other way around, we'll be going for a control reliance approach, and that way we can decide. So we are mentioning this control reliance, we are mentioning that particular thing. So where we'll get the marks over here? So we'll get a mark, point number 1, mentioning that, okay, to gain understanding. By understanding this particular thing, the auditor can design their auditor procedures. Auditor can design the nature, timing and extent of their audit procedures. I'm putting APs, audit procedures. Okay. Second thing, they can either go for a control reliance strategy based on this. If the controls are operating effective, or they can consider, okay, substantive approach. They can go for a substantive approach if the controls are not reliable. The controls are not reliable. So this is what we will be considering relating to the controls. So controls rely, controls not rely. That could be the questions we'll be considering over here. Okay, we'll be getting 2 marks for just stating this particular thing. Again, we have user wording over here, explain. What does that mean? We had a session in SOE Global relating to question verbs also. What does explain means? If you go the bullet point like this, what I have written over here like bullet points, you will not be getting that full 2 marks. You need to give it in sentences over there. You need to write in 2 to 3 sentences to gain the 2 marks relating to that, which will be so it is better to understand how do you start this particular thing. The auditor will be designing this particular thing. Accordingly, you will decide, okay, if the controls, the auditor will be getting that control reliance strategy over there. What they will do, they will be having the nature, timing and extent over there. They can decide on that. And if they are controlling relying effective, they will be testing the controls and doing lesser substantive procedures. If they are not relying on controls, they will be doing a more substantive procedures. That is what we can do relating to this particular thing. Okay, right? Yes. So now next thing, okay, explanation meaning you need to give up explain the things in sentences. Now the next thing is coming over here. What is the next thing coming over here? What is the next thing coming over here? Identify. Question verb, very level 1 question verb. This is level 1 question verb. Explain is basically we have level 2 question verb. Okay, level 1 question verb is identifying 2 methods. You don't have to mention or explain how this can be used in detail over here. You are just using to go. Bullet points is also fine over here. 2 methods. So anyone can suggest me the 2 methods in which you can obtain the understanding of the company system of internal control. Okay, so there is a question in between relating to Benita. For control deficiencies, we will give some recommendations which will indirectly mean the direct control. Obviously, yes, Benita, that is a thing. And for this, we will again do the test of control. Yes, your understanding is correct, Benita, on that particular thing. Yes, we'll see that this question is based on that thing only. Let's finish the A part. Let's get into the B part. We'll be doing that. Okay, right. So now focusing on the A part, second question, identify the 2 methods an auditor could use to obtain an understanding of the company's system of internal control. Anyone can help me with this? Where and all, or how we can get this particular thing? Right? So let's consider from the EY point of view or from an auditor point of view, from a practical scenario, there is something called a walk-through test. There is something called a walk-through test. By performing, you can by performing a walk-through test. Walk-through test of control, or performing, rather I'll remove the test, by performing a walkthrough of controls over here. I would consider walkthrough of controls. So what is meant by a walkthrough of controls? Okay, the control they are telling, the management is claiming the controls are happening this way. Okay, the control is having 1 2 like that. Okay, there is a process we known as IRPT, initiation, okay, recording, processing and reporting, IRPT. So we'll be going through that particular thing and we'll be checking whether the controls, the auditor will be checking whatever they have mentioned is happening correctly or not. That is by performing a walkthrough of control. That is one method. What would be the other method you will be looking into? You can look into the last year internal control documentation to gain an understanding. Yes or no? So we can look for the last year internal control documentation. So look into, or rather than look into, let's sound professionally. Okay, professionally, what would we say over here? Reviewing, okay, prior year control documentations. Prior year control documentations. Or I could again get the third one over here. Third one would be symbol over here. I can consider, okay, management letter points or control recommendations. Management letter points. We will have control recommendations made in the last year. Control recommendations made in last year. So where you will make the control recommendation, this will be done through a management letter. So management letter you will be sending to the management as part of your audit, where you have in the management letter, when you consider the management letter, we will be sending them a letter to them, which will be indicating during the course of audit, whichever controls we have considered, okay, whichever controls we have considered, how come which all things we have come across, some deficiencies we have come across, and we are giving them some recommendation. That is how we'll be making that management letter over here. So clear on this? So this is how we will be considering over here. Okay, so we will gain marks by stating only the 2 points, only 2 points required. 1 mark, half a mark per point, since it is a level 1 question verb, half a mark per point. It's a level 2 in the previous question, 1 mark per point you will be gaining over here. That is how it is. And Deepak, yes, prior year internal control test report rather than test report, prior year internal control recommendation sheet that has been provided to the management would be the right answer. Now let's get into the core of this particular question. I believe that this thing, okay. Are there more points? Yes, we have more points. Yes, we have more points relating to that. Okay. We can gain this particular thing. What all things we can gain? So we will be having, we can review the company's own accounting and internal control systems also. That is another point. They would have made accounting manuals, policy manuals. You can go through that particular thing. That is a 4th point you can add over here. And we will be having evaluating the reports and manuals being prepared by an internal audit department also. That's the 2 additional point you can have it over there. So we might have an internal audit department. That internal audit department's chances to look at whether the controls are effective or not. So they will be having internal audit reports on the controls. That will be also can be read by the auditor to gain an understanding. And again, we can consider reading through the company's accounting manuals, through which we will be making the documentation of internal controls. I believe, Akshaya, that suffice your query over here. So we'll have 5 points, out of which any 3 you can make, any 2 you can make, you will gain that 1 mark over here, because the question verb is identifying over there. So anyone has any questions relating to this particular part? Okay. No. Board meeting minutes, no. Board meeting minutes will be applied normally for any major kind of changes you will be making. So yes, if they are making a change in the internal control system, yes, they will be making, but they'll be only making, there is going to be a change. But in detail, if you need to go through that will be only available from the manuals or the particular policy documents that would be there. Yes, Akshaya, relating to this, we'll be having some kind of information for the change. Yes, that we can refer to the board meeting minutes. Yes, any authorized change in the internal control system you can get. But generally, these 5 things we'll be considering over there. Yes, right. Or we can add one more point. We can say that in total, your prior year audit file, if it is done by you or by some other auditor also, review the total prior year audit file for any of the issues you have identified, rather related to control or any other area. That could give you again a heads up relating to some control understanding over there. I believe clear. So shall we go into the next aspect? Okay, so the next aspect is the question is the major thing. So 3 marks now gone from here. Okay, now the next aspect over here you can see, in respect of the internal controls of Quirky Quad Bike Company. In respect of the internal controls of Quirky Quad Bike Company, identify and explain 2 things, 2 verbs coming. Identify and explain 6 deficiencies. So if you identify, half mark will come. Another half mark is for the 6 deficiency for explaining with why and impact. So you need to go for 6 deficiencies. How much? You need to go for 6 deficiencies. Next thing, recommend a control to address each of these deficiencies. Recommend a control for each of these particular deficiencies. And third one, describe a test of control to perform to assess whether each of these controls, if implemented, is operating effectively. Assuming if implemented, if these controls are operating effectively, you need to consider this thing. And as we explained, there are 3 parts. Number 1, deficiency identified. Number 2, control recommendation. Number 3, going for a test of control. So 1, 2, 3 over here, and they're saying marks will be split equally between each part, and we have 18 marks over here. 18 marks, okay. 1 for identifying the deficiency. How many marks? How many marks? We have 6 marks for that. Okay. Okay. Second, we'll be going for recommendation of control. Control recommendation. Control recommendation. Again, we'll have 6 marks. And we will have test of control, TOC. Test of controls. The third portion will have again 6 marks. Now my question. They've given already 6 over here. If they are not given also, they have just given identify and explain deficiencies, and they've given 18 marks, and it will be split accordingly equally between each part. If you have that particular thing, how do you identify this thing? It is always equally distributed. So here we need to only come up with 6 deficiencies, 6 control recommendation, and 6 test of controls to test that recommendations you have made over here. So understood the question over here, what you have to do? Understood the question over here, what you have to do? Now we will be going to see the question. We'll read through the question. We'll understand the question. We'll note down what is the deficiencies. We'll mark the deficiencies just like we have done with the audit question over here in the last class. So let's read from the thing over here. Let's go into the above case. Okay. So scenario is relates to 7 requirements. They have 7 requirements mentioned. Okay, we can ignore that particular fact over here. It is now 1st July. It is now 1st July. Your client is Krukey Quad Bike Company manufacturing ready mixed concrete, which it supplies to a wide range of customers throughout the country. The company's year end now is 31st July 20x5. So you are at 1st July. The year end is not yet finished. So we are currently at which stage? We are currently at planning stage again. We are currently at planning stage again. Now you are an audit supervisor. Your role is audit supervisor over here. You are an audit supervisor. I'm just highlighting the periods. Okay. What is the major things we are having over here? So manufacturers ready mix conduct, and you are now an audit supervisor at Aerobol company, and you're reviewing what all things? System documentation in preparation for the interim audit and attendance at the year entry count. So you are preparing interim audit, and you are supposing to be present at your year-end inventory count for that company. Now, although payroll and inventory are standalone systems, so they're giving you this payroll and inventory are standalone. So these are not integrated. This will be not directly connected, but they are specifically mentioning over here, as you asked, sales and purchase modules are fully integrated into computerized system. This is pretty much very, very important. Why it is important? Now the sales and purchases are computerized. Manual controls will not apply to them. We need to consider computerized controls relating to sales and purchase modules over there. Now let's read through for the system documentation over here. Okay. System documentation we'll read. Okay. I would need help from you guys also. Okay. To identify this particular thing, you can interact in the chat box relating to this. Yes, the company undertakes continuous production 24 hours a day. Raw materials will be transferred from the warehouse to the factory during the inventory count on 31st July 20x5 so that the production can continue. However, no goods will be received from the suppliers or dispatched to customers during this particular period. So do we have a control deficiency in the first paragraph? Do we have a control deficiency in the first paragraph? What they're telling, okay, my company is, their 24 hours production is happening, but inventory count will be happening on 31st June. Okay, but raw materials will be transferred over there. Okay. Yes, Tarun is stating, yes, there is a deficiency. Count may be incorrect due to 24 hours of production. I understood what you're trying to say, Deepak, but how do you frame it correctly? How do you frame it correctly? Excuse me. Yes. How do you frame it correctly? Basically, Tarun, if you can help Deepak in a little bit over there. How do you frame it correctly? Due to the continuous 24 hours production, and the raw materials being taken out from the factory for production always, there is a chance that the inventory count would be going wrong. So how do you do this particular thing? I'll highlight and I'll keep this particular point as one. So we have identified. Identification is correct. Okay, the company will be undertaking, there is a continuous 24 hours continuous production, and raw materials will be transferred from warehouse to the factory during inventory count on 31st July, so that production can continue. So I can ignore this production can continue over here. So let's consider this thing, there is continuous, or let's consider from the first sentence here. Okay, from here to here I am considering, one moment guys. So from here to here I am considering it as my deficiency, number one deficiency. Why deficiency is that? You identify part is copy pasting these two sentences into your this thing. Now you are explaining why. Okay, what is that deficiency over here? Raw materials, okay, taken out. Raw materials taken out during inventory count. Okay, why that is a deficiency? Because inventory count would be inaccurate, or inventory quantity could be inaccurate. That could be that Y thing over there. Okay, and the impact would be there. We'll be having like, no, without having the proper inventory, you might even consider reordering that particular thing also, which will incur more cost for the company. That would be your impact, negative impact also, more cost to the company relating from like no wrong inventory that is being maintained, the number will be maintained. Okay, got it? So this would be the first thing over there. Okay, second thing, let's go to the second paragraph. Any other point you have made? Okay, yes, count may be incorrect. The production and raw material transferred during the count, during the inventory count, inventory could be omitted or counted twice. Yes, exactly, Aksha. Inventory could be omitted or counted twice, meaning like it was been already being counted over here and can be taken to the other side. So that could be like counted from raw materials again. So kind of having a problem over here. Yes. So what could be the test of controls you could be making over here? It can be an audit test, Srihari. Yes, it can be an audit test, but we need to frame our answer just like a control. If the same thing they have asked you for an audit test, I'll write it an audit test. What I'll do for an audit test, I'll say like, no, inventory will be counted twice. If inventory would be counted twice over here, the inventory could be overstated or misstated. That would be the impact I'll be giving. But how we'll be making this particular change over here? We are making it as like, no, due to the inventory counted or counted twice or this particular thing, there is a possibility that the company will not order, or company will be ordering more inventory than required, which would be resulting in higher cost for the company in the future. So that would be the negative impact we'll be touching. So how do you frame it? For an audit risk, you will be stating under or over statement. For this particular thing, you are framing it as what is the negative impact on the company, not on the FS. Clear on that? I hope that is clear for you guys. Is it clear? Right. Now we'll just identify and we'll come back relating to this particular thing one by one. Okay. So next paragraph. Or let's say we'll discuss this thing and we'll frame and go. Right? We'll frame and go for the first one. The same time itself, better. Okay. I'm just coming down over here. Okay. And how you will be framing this particular thing? You need to identify this thing. If you understood this thing, it would be better. Okay, I'm coming to this and I'm just pasting it over here for your B section. Okay, I think. Okay, control efficiency. Okay, I've just put in relating to my note only. The ICS tab, you can consider like the general deficiencies over there. Okay, you can consider putting in your control recommendation over here as well. We have been added how many things? We have been asked only to put in for 6 items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'll be doing 6 things. Okay. So let's keep it at 6. Okay. 6 things will be coming over here. Right. Okay. The first one again will be following what? The same concept over here. I'll have identify. Okay. What is the next thing? If I identify, what is the next thing I'll be going with? Why? Okay. Then again, here we'll be going for negative impact on business. Negative impact on business. So this is what we'll be going with relating to this particular areas. So identified, we have identified. What is identified over here? What is identified over here, guys? We have identified, okay, raw materials are taken out from the warehouse or factory, from the warehouse or factory here, okay, during the active inventory count. During the active inventory count over here. Okay, this is your identification thing. Now, why this could be a particular thing? There is a chance that, okay, the raw material could be omitted or double counted during the inventory count happening at the date 31st July 20x5. In addition, since I have not mentioned also, you can add, in addition, the finished goods completed on the same day may be missed during the count. Okay, so this we can consider over here. So this is like no why concept that is coming. Now we are not done. What do you have to do? Negative impact on business also we have to mention. What is a negative impact on business? What is a negative impact on business? This may lead to, okay, company ordering more raw materials, okay, or lead to stock out, okay, during the production, since we have a wrong inventory quantity resulting in additional costs for the company. So this would be that particular thing on the negative impact. Okay, so meaning like, okay, identify has been considered over here. The identify, there is a chance that the raw materials could be omitted or double counted. Why is there? Raw materials identify situation is there, okay, and then negative impact is there. Clear Deepak on the framing? Clear on the framing, right? So identify, why, and the negative impact has been put in over here. Okay, so recommendation over here: separate raw materials and goods received and ready for dispatch in different locations after counting and tagging. It should be marked and entered in the sequence sheet. So Akshaya, somewhat correct. Yes, I'll try to refine that particular recommendations over here. Okay, now record raw material out and production. Record the raw material out and production goods in properly. After inventory count, adjust the figures. During the count, the team should tag the counted area and the audit team should review the particular count. Yeah, audit team should review the count as test of controls, Deepak, not the control recommendation. We'll take it slow. Don't mix it up over here. So now let's get into the control recommendation relating to this particular part. How do you make the control recommendation? What is your deficiency? What is your deficiency? Raw material count could be wrong. Raw material could be wrong. That is the deficiency we are looking at over here. So what would be the recommendation you will be making relating to this? I need to ensure that whatever raw material, I need to ensure that inventory count is happening without any problems. I need to ensure that raw materials also counted regularly. I need to ensure that the finished goods completed on that day also is will coming into my this thing clearly. So I'll consider the point number 1. Okay, will manage the management recommendation. You're making a recommendation to the management. Okay, the raw materials needed for production, raw materials needed for production on 31st July 20x5, I believe x5 it is, 31st July 20x5 should be 20x5, okay, should be taken out and kept at a different location before or needed for production. The device should be counted and taken out. I would say counted and taken out and kept at a different location in the factory or warehouse. They are mentioning in the factory now. Okay. Next thing is, what will you do? So raw material related issue is now sorted. Okay, the counted areas should be tagged or marked as counted by the counting team. Okay, yes. Okay, then the next thing, the finished goods coming from the day's production, that day's production on 31st July production should be arranged in a different area and should be counted at the end of the day. Okay, so these are the things you can keep it over here, and you can mention like who can count this particular thing also over here. So these are how you will be framing the control recommendation over there. Record the raw material out and production process. Yes, that can also you will add. Okay, the raw material needed for production is kept separately from that. How much has been taken out, how much has not been taken out, that reconciliation also you can add in the book. Not a problem over there. Right, now we have produced this particular control recommendation over there. Now comes how we'll be doing this particular thing in testing that particular controls. How do you frame this particular thing? How do you test this particular thing? So to help you with that, we'll go to the top. Okay, control deficiency is taken. Now control recommendation, you are authorization, approval, segregation of duty, reconciliation, verification, physical and logical control. This form of physical and logical control, we are taking it, and that particular thing is being kept over there. Okay, physical thing or reconciling that particular thing at the end can be considered. Now test of controls will be the activities that will be performed by. Test of controls is the activities that will be performed by the external auditor, which will come from inquiry or discretion, inspection or review, observation or reperformance of controls. And always check the procedure is, once you return this particular thing, always the procedure should give an answer to you. Is it effective or yes? Is it not effective? No. That particular kind of answer should be given after you return that particular procedure. So what could be the procedure you can suggest over here? What could be the procedure you could consider? Inventory count is happening, something that lively happening. What can we do as a procedure? External auditor. Yes? What procedure out of this? They can observe the inventory count, right? They can observe the inventory count, right? Yes or no? The audit team should inspect the area counted as tagged properly. Yes, that is one thing. Yes. Observe the audit, not audit physically, observe the count physically. Okay, you are being there, you are already there, you are observing the count is done as per the instructions you can mention. Okay, but the risk over here is relating to raw materials. Risk over is relating to raw materials. So what will you do? You will do this particular thing as let's whatever controls you have put in over here, you need to consider this thing. The first control I put in what? Raw material needed for production on 31st July should be counted and taken out and kept at different location at the factory at the start of the day itself. You can mention at the start of the day. Here you can mention at the start of the day. Okay, that you can mention. Now, when we consider over here, auditor should observe the process of inventory count. Okay, specifically verifying the management is keeping raw materials needed for production on 31st July separately. Okay, separately, and anything taken out from that has been transferred as or classified, has been transferred or has been classified as work in progress. Okay, so we can add that also over there, but over here, so raw material has been kept separately. The raw material has been kept separately, and that has been like no anything taken from that raw material side has been transferred as a work in progress. We can consider that. Okay, now second thing we mentioned as a control over here is counted areas should be tagged as marked as counted. So auditor review that areas counted has been marked as tagged or marked as complete or counted. So that thing you can review from that particular thing. Auditor should review okay, the areas counted has been marked as counted, okay, by the count teams. You can observe also since he is over there, what you can review or observe. You can observe while they are making it also. So observe. Okay, then the third thing we have made over here is the third control we have made over here is what? Okay, finished goods. Okay, auditor should verify the finished goods is counted in for the counted in the inventory count over there. So you can mention inventory count, it is counted, or you can see that it's being kept over there like that. So any of these particular two or one is needed, but again like to safety you can write two as well. So you'll be getting marks for that particular thing over there. This is how you'll be considering. So how you will perfect, okay, sequence check. How do we need sequence checks here? We don't need a sequence checks right now here. Sequence checks is not applicable for this thing, but the items you will be taking out on that form we'll consider. So that is coming in the next paragraph. We'll consider from there. Okay, right. So the first thing is being done. You will be gaining 3 marks by doing this particular thing. Now let's go on to the question once more and see what is being done over here. So let's see the next paragraph relating to that and identify. Okay, next paragraph. Okay, next paragraph. Raw materials required in the production process are requested by factory production supervisors. Okay, raw materials required in the production are required by the or requested by the factory production supervisors. Requisition forms are sent to the purchasing order department for authorization and processing, and the requisition forms contain details of materials required but do not detail the current inventory levels. So we mentioned a heads up. We mentioned a heads up over there. What is the heads up over there? Like, no, we have given wherever in a question you see no or not, that will be indicating again a control deficiency over there. Have they given a no or not over here? Yes, they have given a no or not over here. So, meaning like over here, the requisition form contain details of material required but do not detail the current inventory level. So they will not be considering the current inventory level. This will be again calling for that impact we have considered over here. They might require or they might request the inventory without even considering their existing inventory level over there, which might indicate that whatever they have required. So production department, factory production will be taking 2000, which is required for this production, but they will not tell what is remaining with them. So however, what is remaining with them, if you know like 500 units are remaining, they should have made a requisition for 1500 only. So that assessment is not being complete properly in that. That is a deficiency over here. Okay, right? So now over here we will be having this thing. Okay, so we can consider from here requisition forms are sent to the purchasing ordering department for authorization and processing, and the requisition forms contain details of the material required but do not detail the current inventory levels. So we'll consider this as your second control deficiency. Okay, why? Do not detail the requisition form. If you shorten it out, you can copy paste it, but again the requisition form does not contain what? Does not contain the current inventory level. Does not contain the current inventory level. So what could happen because of that? Why this is that particular thing over here? Okay, department might order, okay, or rather than might order, department might request, okay, more than what is required, okay, leaving some items like no idle resources will be kept. So meaning like you would be providing 2000 to them if they are requiring. So in the scenario, like assuming they are requiring 2000, but they need for production 2000, they are requiring 2000, but they have not considered 500 is already there. So what they'll do, the store will give them 2000 over there, and like what will happen over here, since the inventory system is not integrated, they cannot check this particular thing also. Someone would be thinking, okay, this would be available in the system. No, but they have mentioned inventory system is not integrated. Because of that, how much stock is there or not, store will not be, or how much they are having with them, that will not be available to the stores department or warehouse department. From there, you'll be sending this. So 2000 send in. So they not use 2000. Still, that 500 will be there, which will become obsolete later. Or now the other part is now the store needs to make a requisition to purchase department for 2000 units to refill in, which will be like no unnecessary cost for the stores, okay, which will be leading, the impact would be increased cost. The impact will be increased cost due to unnecessary or not needed purchase of the raw materials. So unnecessary or not needed purchase related thing, that would be the case over here. So that would be the case. So I think that would be identifiable, that would be clear for you. So this would be the thing. Okay, so that would be the impact. So we have identified the deficiency over here. We'll be putting that particular thing into the framing thing. So how do you frame it? Again, we'll be using this particular thing. Again, we'll be using the same techniques over here. What we'll do, we'll go to that Excel. Okay, we'll come down. Since I'm not copy pasting only, I'm just typing this particular thing, guys. Okay, so identify, I'm just copy pasting the same thing over here, guys. So sorry with that. I am copy pasting this so that we will edit that particular thing over here, right? So in here, I am going to change what is here. What is the change I am going to make in here? Second, identification as like no, the raw material requisition form does not contain details regarding current inventory levels held by the production departments. Okay, so why that is a particular thing? Since the inventory system, you can take it the example from, since the inventory system is a standalone system, stores will not have any idea on how much inventory is left or how much raw material is left with the production departments. Okay, which will lead to release of how much quantity they have requested okay, leading to idle inventory lying in production departments. Okay, further the stores may need to purchase the raw materials, or store may need to, rather than purchase, not to reimburse, or not reimburse, will be like no, we keep that particular no purchase, again we'll go for that word, purchase the relevant quantities. Okay, so this would be why. Now what is it like no negative impact on business? This may lead to company ordering more raw material. Same thing only, this will lead to company ordering more raw material. Okay, incurring, resulting in additional cost for the company. Same kind of effect only, resulting in additional cost for the company. This is your kind of thing. So you got that, how we are framing this particular thing? Any doubts on relating to this particular thing? How do you frame this? So we are framing as raw material requisition form does not contain details regarding the current inventory levels held by them, so it is not integrated, so the people will not know. Now the other things we'll be having over here would be inventory system is not there, so they don't have an idea. So what would be the recommendation? It's already hidden in the why thing. What would be the recommendation, guys? What would be the recommendations you can make? Since the requisition form does not have that particular thing, we'll be making a recommendation. Okay, requisition form should have a column, should have an information collected that relating to the current inventory level of each production department, and that should be verified before releasing any inventory to the production departments by the store or the purchasing. What is the department we are having over here? So what would be the recommendation over here? We'll make over here as the requisition form should be amended. Requisition form should be amended to include details about current inventory level, and this should be reviewed by the stores or purchasing department before releasing the materials to the production departments. Okay, adding on to this particular thing, we can say, okay, at the end of, okay, at the end of each day, we can consider, if they are possible, each day, okay, the production department should reconcile, okay, the opening raw materials they had, okay, used in the day's production, okay, and what is remaining at the end of the day. Okay, so this should be that particular thing, and we can add in like, no, someone should review this particular thing so over here, but I'm not adding this, so this could be a recommendation over here. Clear on this? Clear on this? So you have understood this particular thing, so we'll have over here in this particular thing, and again, okay, raw material requisition form we'll consider over here. Anything else? Anything else? Yes? Anything else you can add on, guys, relating to this particular thing? Now we have made the control recommendation. Now what would be the test of control on these things? What will be the test of control on these things? The auditor can check. The auditor can check the requisition form, inspect the requisition form for like, no, the requisition form is containing the current inventory level, okay, mentioned, and they can observe the process, like whether the purchase department or the stores department is basically reviewing the inventory level before releasing this particular goods to them. So that is one thing. Second thing, like, no, they can observe the process of, or they can inspect the document where this reconciliation of this raw material has been made by the production department. These are the two things we can make in over here, right? So write down that particular thing over here. So what will you do? Okay, the auditor should, okay, the auditor should, okay, review or inspect, whatever term you'll review the requisition form to verify the, okay, details is added for current inventory level at the production departments, okay, plus further they should observe the process of, okay, raw material being released, okay, to verify that inventory levels are checked before release of inventories. Okay, then you can go for, okay, the reconciliation done by the purchase department should be, okay, reviewed for preparer and reviewer sign off. So these things you can do over here. That is the second thing over here. I believe You have got that particular thing also being framing. So now you guys got an understanding about like no how you frame this particular question. So we have a starting like identify why and this particular thing, then make a control recommendation, and with that particular thing you would be going for a recommendation you will be making over here. So the auditor should review and reperform the reconciliation of raw material. Yes, they can reperform that particular thing also, Deepak. Yes. Inspect whether raw materials are kept aside and observes. That is relating to earlier comment only, right? So anyone else is having trouble now? Now have you understood, Deepak, how you'd be framing this particular thing? Have you guys understood this particular thing? Anyone having any doubts relating to this particular part? We'll continue with the question with the rest of the things. We'll be identifying that particular things. So right now, since I have framed you for the 1 and 2 over here, we put this particular thing, how you'll be putting control recommendation on this particular item over here. Let's go through the question in total. Let's discuss like what all are the control deficiencies, and let's mark like what would be the control recommendation you will be marking over there relating to that, right? So just putting in a particular poll over here. Okay. Okay, are you guys finding this effective? Okay, so you can consider putting that particular poll also, like we'll consider like that particular item, right? So if you are finding this particular effective, so you can put in as yes. If you are finding like little more to be improved, you can put it as no also. So we will consider that particular thing. So auditor should be doing this thing. So again highlighting you that particular point, we might have a particular question that will be coming like control deficiency, control recommendation, and test of controls. And be very sure that the recommendation you are making is to the management to implement some particular controls over there, and test of controls is the auditor will be testing those particular controls. Be very specific, be very clear relating to that particular area. Okay. Deepak is a now okay, sir, but when I am solving a problem, it's tough to explain why it direct control and it is a control deficiency. Take consideration over here, Deepak, like easy choices. Go into that particular 8 pointers. Try to find that particular thing over here. So let's to resolve this particular like thing live itself. Let's hear it from you. The next framing, next deficiency, next recommendation, and next thing, then I'll correct you on that particular thing so that we'll see this over here, right? Let's consider the next thing from the question itself. Let's go to the Excel, go to the top. So we have now considered the second one over here out of 6. Now let's read through. Now let's read through. Okay. On receipt of goods from the suppliers, the quantities received are checked by a warehouse assistant against the supplier's delivery note. The goods received note is electronically produced by the warehouse assistant, and notifications are sent to all relevant departments. Once received, purchase invoice are matched to the GRN and logged into the payable system by a payables clerk. Application controls are used to check the accuracy of the input. There are so many things in here, but let's consider the first sentence after this thing. So what are the first sentence we are looking into here? On the receipt of goods from the suppliers, the quantities received are checked by the warehouse assistants against the supplier's delivery note. Do we have a problem over here? Yes. Quantity of received goods agree against supplier statement instead of purchase order. This may risk that received goods are not really not ordered goods, and quality and a quantity is not actual order. Exactly, Deepak. So we are not verifying. So the deficiency over here, you take that thing over here. So you will be taking this particular sentence. Okay, identify these things. Okay, over here. Okay, why this was a particular case? Why this was a particular problem over here? Because it is matched against, okay, the goods received from supplier is matched against supplier's delivery note. Ideally it should be matched against what? Ideally it should be matched against the third thing. It's matched against matched against delivery note instead of instead of as Deepak mentioned, instead of purchase order. What you have made over here, like no, instead of purchase order, you're matching that to a delivery note. That is that particular thing. Now tell me, Deepak, okay, why this is a particular thing? What could result over here? Why this is a particular thing? In your words, the received goods are not. The received goods, what you have received is not of that particular quantity and quality. Quality is not being checked. See, they are not, no, they are just checking, like, no, quality is not being checked. That is again one thing problem over there. Second problem that you will be having over there would be, okay, you are not matching into PO. There would be, like, no, some orders you have placed which is not yet received from the supplier also. So that is not being done also. That reconciliation or rematching is not being done. That three-way matching is not being performed over there. So that could be your why. So what would be the impact? Please give me that, Deepak. What would be the impact you will be having? What would be the impact you will be having relating to this? Once you are not matching this particular thing, this may increase the it will not increase that cost basically. It will be like, no, it will be basically like, no, you will be receiving the goods not being ordered. Yes, yeah, cost can be increased. It could be like, no, you might need to pay for that items for which you have not ordered. So cash flow problems can be also happened over there. So meaning there will be again purchase orders which is not being fulfilled. So we need to again get it from the supplier. So again we need to pay for that. So again the impact would be that. Now what would be the recommendation we'll be having in here? What would be the recommendation you'll be having over here? Yes. Yes, what would be the recommendation we'll be having over here? We'll make that same recommendation. We'll be keep on saying, guys, in the class, okay, for SOE global students. The other people, like, no, what would be the recommendation? They mentioned they are matched to delivery note. We mentioned it should be matched against PO. So the recommendation is whatever goods that is being received from the suppliers, the warehouse assistant should check. Again, the warehouse assistant should check that particular thing for quantity and quality as per PO, as per the desired thing, as per the purchase order you have kept it. You have to compare that against that particular purchase order. That is what we are looking into. So we need to consider as per the purchase order that you place with the supplier, are we receiving the same goods? Are we receiving the same quality? So that is the matching thing. That is the control we will be putting in over there. So matched against the delivery, matched against the purchase order for the this thing. And the warehouse assistant should check for the quantity and quality. Any quality degraded thing, anything not meeting your quality, anything that you have not ordered should be returned to the supplier again. So this thing would be the control recommendations you will be making relating to that over there. That is the control recommendation you will be making it over there. Now what would be the test of controls in that case? What would be the test of controls in that case? Test of controls would be like, no, the auditor should observe when the goods are being received, the particular warehouse assistant is doing this particular thing. They are checking the quantity and quality. Auditors can inspect that particular document. The auditor can inspect that particular document against, okay, PO. Okay, is it being matched or not? That matching has been done or not? We are not checking in detail. We are checking whether that process has been done or not. That we can inspect that document whether they are matched or not. Okay, that is the case. Now debug whatever you have written as the recommendation, we can improve on that particular thing. They should match, the warehouse assistant should match the goods against the purchase order when they are being received, and should check for the quality and quantity, and any items which is not of good quality, not you have ordered, should be returned to the particular supplier. So that thing should be your control recommendation in total. So when you write warehouse assistant should match the goods against the purchase order, it sounds like a half control. In that, what all things you would be matching, that should be putting in over there. Okay, you're matching the product quantity and quality. Both should be mentioned over there. Then you will be getting full marks for that particular item. Test of controls will be observing the process, or we can check the documents where they have matched this particular thing over there. So that would be the control recommendation. Clear? So keep it as now control recommendation. Have they done? reviewed, okay, they have the match, yes, should be coming over there. Okay, it's not like no, we are checking the details. It's about have they done the process. That would be your test of controls. Basically observe the process of this particular no when live purchase goods are being received, you are observing that particular process. For the other thing that is being looked into, we'll be looking through the documents over there. That would be the recommendation we'll be having over there. I believe Benita also this would be clear. Yes, Benita, clear for you as well? Right. So now going into this next sentence. Okay, anyone else from the chat can do, or we will discuss again with that. So what is the next thing? Next sentence is saying when you have a goods received note, when you have a goods received note, it is electronically produced by the warehouse assistant and notifications are sent to all relevant departments. So I don't see a problem. It is prepared and given by the warehouse assistants and GRN is being sent to all the departments. Once received, purchase invoices are matched to the GRN and logged into the payable system by the payable clerk. Again, a problem is happening over here. What is the problem? Purchase invoices from the supplier, okay, as marked against GRN and logged into the payable system by a payable clerk. Okay, so there is one thing that is coming in over here. What is that one thing that is coming in over here? What is that particular problem? What is that particular problem? What is the problem you are facing over here? Yes. What is the problem you are facing over here? Anyone? Three-way matching is not happening. Three-way matching is not again happening. What is the three-way matching? What is the three-way matching? Yes, there is no review before logged in the payable system can be that, but I would say here they are only comparing documentational issue again. The purchase invoice has been compared against GRN only. Here again, we are not getting what? The fourth one, okay. PO is not again compared. PO bar GRN bar invoice. So these things should be basically compared. This three-way matching is missing. The three-way matching is missing over here. That is the problem. So three-way matching missing. Okay, once three-way matching is missing, okay, so there will be again purchase orders. The purchase invoices would be not matching with PO. Same problem will be happening over here. That could be one thing. That is the fourth one. Same recommendation. It would be matched against this thing. Three-way matching should be done over there. That would be the case again. And we will be continuing with the next sentence. Application controls are used to check. Next sentence. Application controls are used to check accuracy of the input. I would say fifth problem. Whenever that is being received, accuracy is being tested. It's good thing. We are checking the accuracy of the input. But what are we missing? What are we missing over here? There is no check on the completeness of the input. Accuracy, whatever has been included, you are checking accuracy, but you are not checking the completeness of this particular thing. There is a possibility that you have not entered, or the payable clerk have not entered every invoice into the system. They are only checking whatever you have entered is the amounts are accurately coming or not. They are not looking in how many invoices. There might be 100 things that is not being entered over here. That could be the problem. Yes. Now what is the fifth problem? What is the fifth problem? What could be the fifth problem, guys? So fifth problem is basically I'm taking in over here. So fifth problem is, okay, only accuracy is tested in application control, not completion. Completion is not being tested, meaning we are not looking like no everything has been added, every invoice has been entered or not. That has not been taken into consideration over here. Now what would happen if you are not taking this particular thing? What is the recommendation you can make over here is introduce batch totaling. Batch totaling is a computerized control. You will be like, no, you will take like 100 invoices in total. So 100 invoices in total will be having this figure. So if you miss out one of the invoice, the batch total will not match with what you have entered. So batch totaling using batch total would be one solution for that. Or we can consider using sequence checks also. Sequence checks, you will be given invoices or given grns with the sequence checks or pos with the sequence checks. So if you miss an invoice, if you miss that particular thing, that will be sporting up over there. So sequence checks also we can do. So batch total, sequence checks are these particular thing that will be coming over there. Clear on this? Yes. So this is the way in which you will be trying to get this particular thing, the internal control. So if you refer to BPP chapter number, I guess in the 8th and 9th chapter, both chapter, there is a section where we will be looking into information system controls, IT general controls, and the application controls you will be having. Just revise that concept once, go through that and try to use that. Like, what is a batch total? What is a sequence checks? What is input verification? Like that, you can just verify with that. So these things we'll be using over it. Since it is an integrated purchase system, this would be done in computer. So we'll be checking in computer itself whether that has been entered correctly or not. Clear on this? Okay. Yes. So this is relating to that particular part. Okay. Now going to the next paragraph. So we'll be having next paragraph that will be coming up. So I think like I will be leaving you with this particular part. You can go through this particular thing and identify your thing, or let's discuss and keep this framing. You can do. I'll share you this particular Excel we have done for the framing. Same way we'll be using the framing. So let's consider the next one. Each receivable clerk is responsible for the processing of sales transaction for a given set of customers and is able to make changes to these customer details in the master file. Again the problem. Okay. So each receivable clerk has access to the customer's details in the master data file. So no one should have that much access. They can make an edit to that without the approval from the other parties. So it would again lead for a particular deficiency. Sixth one we can consider master data, and master data will be will be having their edit. They can go for a fraud also. That could be that consistence, and we can include a particular control over here that would be relating to this would be done by only a senior person. That would be from receivables, or that would be from any other area. Now again, on a monthly basis, customer statements are produced and sent out, but no further follow-up of outstanding debts are undertaken by the company's credit controller. Okay, most customers make the payments by bank transfer. Okay, now again here another statement, again going for the 7th one. Again it's a particular problem, meaning like customer, okay, outstanding follow-up of outstanding is not undertaken by the common this thing. Bad debts will increase, which will have an impact, we'll be losing cash flows for the future. So this could be another thing. Again, the bank transfer is coming each day. Finance clerk posts the bank transfer receipts from the bank statement to the bank ledger account and update the customer accounts. The same clerks perform the monthly bank reconciliations. So this particular area, finance clerk doing the bank receipts, preparing this particular thing, update the customer account, and also do the bank reconciliation. If you are having all these things together, what will happen? Again, another risk, that is the 8th risk that would be coming over here, would be no segregation of duties. No segregation of duties is coming over here. So that kind of thing that will be coming over here. Recommendation, it would be done by separate party, and test, the auditor should verify that this has been done by, you can observe the process, you can check the document, this has been done by something. And monthly bank reconciliation is not reviewed, so that could be again another thing you can take it as a basis over here. So these are the things. So lack of authorization, can I write the impact on FS to explain the deficiency? No, never. Okay, you might get marks, Deepak, for writing impact on FS to get the deficiency. But the problem is that since we have one exam technique that is for audit risk, there is a chance that you might end up writing the audit responses rather than the control related things. That's why I personally keep this particular thing, never write an understatement or overstatement as a impact over here. Impact should be written as what is the impact on the business, so that we are channeled in a way that okay, we are writing that for the internal control. So we don't want to mix that particular thing. That is the thing we'll be looking into. Clear on that? Clear on that? Yes. Right, that's why. So don't write the impact on FS. You can mention while explaining, if you want to, you can mention that particular thing and why that particular thing is, but the impact on the business should be given. Negative impact should be on the business should be given to gain full marks relating to that. Okay. Now, this is how you will be identifying this particular thing. Let's discuss on the last paragraph also. Okay, so Quirky Quadby company has human resource department which is responsible for setting up new permanent employees. So they have a HRM which will be having new permanent employees being set up. An authorized joiner form containing all relevant details including a unique employee number is sent to the payroll department so that the new employees can be added to the payroll. So this is a normal control. This is a good control we are looking at over here. But the next sentence that is coming up is explaining like, no, this is a wrong thing that will be happening over here. So what is the thing? During the busy periods, the company recruits temporary employees and joiner forms are not completed. And instead these appointments are processed by production director who informs the payroll department by email. So this would, no joiner forms are completed, no unique IDs will be created for them. So which will be creating like no bogus employees chances there. They will not be paid in the particular salaries on time, or correct salaries on time also they will not be paid. Okay, so we'll be having this particular thing, no unique ID, no process followed, it's sent by an email. There could be a problem that email would be missed, they will not be added, they will not be paid, loss of employee goodwill, company may be paying more to some persons. So again, increased cost also will be having over there. This could be the particular thing. And the solution could be, this process should be done by the HR department. HR department should process this particular thing in a normal way only, just like they have stated over there. You can use it as your control recommendation. And then as an auditor test, the auditor can observe the process, auditor can review the documents that there is a unique ID for each person has been there, and any problems that is being faced has been investigated, can be checked by the auditor over there as well. So we had identified almost 9 deficiencies from this particular question. We will be making that 9 recommendation relating to this particular question, and we will have the answer relating to this as well. Okay, so I will be sharing this file with you again, like no, just like we have did for the last sessions. You can have this particular thing, you can add this particular thing into your you can solve that particular thing, frame it and see how we'll be framing it. Follow that structure only, guys. So that would be relating to this internal control. Now we have a small section that is remaining to this, but before that, do we have any questions? Okay, do we have any questions from this particular thing? Yes, any questions you guys have? Yes, so you can put inside over here. Okay, any questions over here, so you can add the questions inside that. Okay, and I can see the questions so that we can answer that questions as well, other than the live chat. Okay, so right, so to summarize this particular thing, over here, so what we have done over here is to look into the internal controls, how to frame the question relating to internal controls, and how we'll be doing this particular thing, how to get the proper marks, what the examiner wants from you to write. This is a technique we need to use again, the full marks relating to this thing that has been done over here. Okay, Now the same question, I have a question remaining towards the end. I have a question remaining towards the end for you in this one, where you can see, okay, we are having like no a session on like no corporate governance deficiencies. This is a minor area, okay. So this minor area you can again frame over here again to explain you how you will be answering it. Okay, we'll have a column again, just like audit risk and responses, just like control deficiency and recommendation. One column will be there for like no for identifying and explain what is the corporates, identifying and explaining why it is a deficiency, and then you need to provide a recommendation to address each of the deficiency over there. Same tabular structure, you need to identify only two, but in here in this question we'll be having more than two in here. So let's see from your end, guys, are you guys seeing any kind of control or corporate deficiencies in this particular paragraphs? Are we seeing anything here? Okay, a query from Benita over here. Does reperformance comes for both test of control and analytical procedures? You are wrong in the question itself, Benita. Analytical procedures is a substantive procedure. Analytical procedure is a substantive procedures. Analytical procedures will not be done for the test of control. Okay, now I believe your framing of the question was this reperformance will be there in test of control or substantive procedures. Reperformance will come in only for test of control. Recalculation will come in substantive testing. I'll repeat again. Reperformance is for like no, you are reperforming what is the control. Auditor will reperform the control over there. Recalculation is auditor is recalculating the figures, detailed figures, which will be coming in substantive thing. I hope that is clear for you. I hope that is clear for you. Yes? Right. Now let's focus on this minor area over here. Can you guys go through this particular thing and give me the corporate governance deficiencies? Excuse me. Can you give me the control deficiencies over, not control, corporate governance deficiencies over here in this one? So someone had this doubt during our class, like, no, how I can study? Should I by heart all the principles of corporate governance so that I will have this answer ready? You don't have to by heart. You try to do like no around like 3-4 questions from corporate governance related thing, then roughly go through that principles. You don't have to by heart this particular thing. You will be seeing repeatedly the same things will be coming for most of the questions. So let's read from here. Kurkwi caught by company is intending to list on a stock market in the next year and therefore wants to ensure the company will be compliant with corporate governance principles. Aeroball and company has been asked to review the current arrangements and identify any changes which will need to be made. So first paragraph, it's an introduction paragraph only. We don't have any deficiencies over there. Now coming to the next thing, the board of Kurki company comprises of 5 executive directors, a chair and 4 independent non-executive directors. So they are having 5 executive, 1 chair and 4 independent executive directors. 2 directors are subject to re-election on a rotational basis at each annual meeting. So in second paragraph, Deepak is mentioning only the 2 directors are re-elected as per corporate governance code. Every director should be re-elected every year. Yes. So okay, every director should be re-elected by the shareholders in the annual general meeting. So that should be done. Yes, that is a deficiency. That could be the recommendation would be always all the directors should be having. Now, is there a balance problem in the board? Is there a balance problem in the board? Normally, one corporate governance could be the balance of the board is not there, like the balance between executive and non-executive over here. So do we have a balance problem here? Yes, we have. It is 5 executive thing. We only have it's only excluding chair, we should have like no at least half of like no non-executive directors. Basically chair might be a non-executive, but again like no excluding chair, I would say better thing to have is we'll have that particular thing over here. So meaning like we'll be having here 5 executive, 4 non-executive. So we need to have, yes Navina, we need to have this particular thing as a corporate governance deficiency over here. So we need to suggest that particular person. Okay, we need to appoint at least one more independent non-executive director. That would be your recommendation that would be coming in here. Yes. Then Third paragraph. Quirky caught by company is proposing to establish an audit committee of 3 independent NEDs, and these NEDs are highly experienced in the industry in which Quirky caught by company operates. Before joining Quirky caught by company, they had senior roles in sales, manufacturing, and marketing. Okay, yes, Deepak, I'll consider like that why deficiency for that particular this thing relating to like balance of the board. Presently, the board consists of 5 executive and 4 non-executive NEDs over there. 5 executive and 4 independent non-executive things over there. So, what will we consider over here? What is the problem over here? What is the problem over here? We don't have a balance of the board. Since we don't have the balance of the board, okay, there is a possibility that executive directors will take a biased decision. That would be why that is a particular deficiency. Or you could say that, okay, as per the corporate governance code, the recommendations you can mention as per the corporate governance code. Here the deficiency is, since the balance is not there, it would lead to an unbiased decision. It would lead to a biased decision or favorism towards the executive director decision in voting also. That's why it is a deficiency. Clear, Deepak? Hope yes. And we'll be going into the last para. Last para is relating to like senior roles. Now, audit committee, we mentioned the composition of audit committee should be a total of 3 independent non-executive directors, and we mentioned it over there. Okay, that person should have financial expertise. At least one person from the audit committee, should have recent financial expertise. As you can see over here, what is the problem? They are from the same industry. They are having experience from the same industry. They are highly experienced in the same industry, but they had roles in sales, manufacturing, and marketing. No person has financial expertise. No person has in the audit committee reasoned financial expertise or experience. Financial expertise and experience. Because of this particular thing, this is going to be again a corporate governance deficiency. As per the corporate governance code, we need to have at least one person in the audit committee should have the recent financial expertise. That is the case over here. Are we clear? So here we have identified 3. Out of this, only 2 is needed for you to gain full marks relating to this. And I believe this is clear for you. And the session was helpful for you. Okay. To wind up the session. So to wind up this particular session, okay. Now we have discussed about the internal controls of this particular thing. So day 1 was audit risk, day 2 was on internal controls, and day 3 will be focusing on substantive procedures and reporting. We'll be focusing both on substantive procedures and reporting. And now relating to this particular area, the timing, there is slight change. Okay. Which will be informed in the group. We'll be starting by 3 or 3:30. Okay, which will be there in the community group, and you can get a notification if you have clicked on that notification known in the channel as well. So you can refer to that, you can check into that, and you will be getting the notification of the next live session. And it is not starting at 8 o'clock. It will start around 3 and 3:30, and we'll be having around 3-hour session, not 2-hour session. We will have a 3-hour live relating to substantive procedures and reporting related thing, where we will be discussing about the audit techniques, exam techniques, which we'll be using over there. So anyone of your friends have not yet joined for this particular crash series yet, you can recommend the session to them. Ask them to join for the session. Okay, so we'll be dealing with substantive procedures and reporting related questions, where we can gain easy marks without putting lot of efforts into that particular thing. So we can consider the timing. So I think it's I'll give you 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes for any of the questions you have. Okay, you can put it in the question session, or you can put it in the live chat as well. I'll take the questions, I'll respond to that particular questions, and we will wind up the session after that. Up to you guys. Okay. Yes, thank you, Deepak. Right. Yes. Questions? Any questions you have? And I am repeating this thing again for you guys. This is an area where it is a repeated question that would be coming from this particular topic. Okay, we will have easy around, like, if they are giving 20, I would say 20 to 24 would be coming from this area in the exam itself. Okay, so easy to get around, around 80 percentage from this thing. If you are prepared this thing, you can get 100 percentage. But if you put in a little effort relating to the exam technique, it is easy to score around 80 percentage marks relating to this in, in the real ACCA exam over here. Okay, try to do more questions. In the live you'll be only able to do like one questions. Try to do more questions, practice more questions with the exam technique we have shared over here. So you'll be getting used to that exam technique. We still have time. The exam is only on 2nd of March. We make use of that particular time, guys. Okay, and I'm telling you, we are touching on the constructed response questions over here. Don't ever miss on the multiple choice questions, OT case study questions. Please work on the OT case study questions as well along with this. Right? So any other things you guys want to discuss on, we can discuss. I am waiting for you for any queries over here, or else let's see you guys on the next live session tomorrow, which will be starting by 3 to 3:30. Okay, just look at the community group for the remainder for the live session and put in that notification sign again on, so that you will get a notification once we go live relating to that particular session. Okay, I believe that the session was helpful for you guys relating to internal controls. Same way, we'll have the session on substantive procedures and reporting in the next sessions. So hoping that there are no other questions from your end. Okay, keywords to use in exam. Navina is asking. Okay, keywords to use in exam. It keywords I can give you for substantive procedures. I can give for this particular thing. And again, relating to internal controls, if you are asking keywords, we have seen this particular thing. No, I have given you this thing. See on the top of this particular thing. So whenever you are looking into a control recommendation or a test of control thing, you can try to use the wordings over here. Control activities, when you are suggesting, you will go for an authorization kind of thing. You say segregation of duties can be there, reconciliations can be performed, it should be verified by a senior official, physical and logical controls can be there. So those are keywords we can use it when you are going for the control recommendation. And for a test of controls, the key would be either using the term discuss with the management, inquire with the management, okay, have a meeting with the management, inspect. These things will come. What are the general technical terms used for the audit procedures? We can use it over there to gain more marks. And always ensure towards the end of that particular thing, your answer is being given as giving the test of control, especially TOC is giving you an answer yes or no. If it is not giving yes or no, then it is not a test of control. What you have written would be test of details. Always after writing a test of control, guys, please recheck that if that particular thing. For example, we are looking auditor to observe the process of inventory count, specifically verifying the management is keeping raw material needed for production separate. Are they keeping separate? That is a question that is coming over here. The answer would be yes or no. Yes or no. So it will not be yes, these many thing, that many thing has been kept. We are not verifying, okay, how many has been kept, how much has been kept. We are not asking. If you are writing like that, then it would become a substantive procedure, which will not be a test of control. Okay, so you need to be very careful on that aspect. Yes, Navina, I think it clears your doubt on that particular area. Right? Now, to how to identify the keywords, you can refer to the past paper question papers. You can refer to the revision kit framing of the answers. Look at the key things they are being pointed out. Okay, repeated in almost every question. That are your keywords. That also you can use it. So keywords in substantive procedures, keywords in this particular thing, will be using this thing only. Yes. Thank you again from my end as well, guys. I believe that's the questions. So any other questions, you can always post behind this particular, the chat would be there. You can put it inside the chat. So I'll be reviewing the chat as well. Okay. Right. So that's it for today for the crash sessions day 2. Okay. We'll be resuming with crash session day 3 in the next day, which is on 23rd February. Okay, please be available for any kind of notifications you will be receiving relating to the live session. Join on time as well. Okay, so that you are not missing on any of the key concepts we are discussing. That's it from our end for today. Okay, this is the end for day 2 crash sessions. Let's begin our day session 3, crash session 3, day 3 on the next day on 23rd February by 3 o'clock over there. So thank you guys. See you on the next day.